Welcome back to Kirkby Hardwick. Now I hope you're ready for some history because these Hardwicks can be a bit confusing. Let's look at a map of around 1600. What we find is that there are two Hardwicks, only 5 miles apart. One is the famous Hardwick Hall, just over the Derbyshire border, where Bess of Hardwick built the great dynasty and a great house. It's visited by thousands of people every year. The other became known as Kirkby Hardwick. It clearly was a grand building. There are drawings and photos showing the remnants of a fine manor house of the Tudor period, with its doors, windows and fireplaces on the first floor. This Hardwick also came to be owned by Bess's descendants, but it became a ruin, perhaps during the Civil War. Another house, not so grand, grew up inside the ancient walls. It went through lots of different phases, and this is what it looked like before it was finally demolished in 1966. In 2011, the Kirkby and District Archaeological Group and Nottinghamshire County Council community archaeologists launched a rediscovery of Kirkby Hardwick. 6 trenches, seen here in green, were explored over 2 weeks. We dug up pottery from around 1490 to confirm its Tudor occupation, and were relieved to find that the 1966 demolition had left plenty of archaeology in place for further exploration. Happily, enough money was left from our Local Improvement Scheme grant for some more digging in March 2012, and the same team of archaeologists and volunteers comes together to make new discoveries. It's phase 2. David, what are we looking at this time?
I want to look at 2 different areas of the site. I'm opening a large trench here, this orange box, to look at where this part of the house, in yellow, meets the Tudor wall here. I want to know if they were built at the same time. I also want to see if the Tudor wall goes any further south, down here, and this will help us decide if this 1600 drawing matches the walls that survive.
And you're planning a second trench, aren't you?
Yes, I want to dig here, where there doesn't seem to be any later building, so we can get at the early periods of occupation. It would be great to find something from the 13th century, because that's when the earliest reference to Kirkby Hardwick crops up in documents.
The boundary of Sherwood Forest passes from Milford to Mains Head, from thence between the fields of Hardwick and Kirkby to the corner that is called Nuncar.
We're underway. Pete gets to work with his mini digger, opening up the 2 trenches. Tree surgeons remove a sycamore tree that dominates Trench 7. David welcomes the volunteers. Sean tells us how not to wield a mattock.
On time team, someone's sort of up here looking really macho. It's nonsense. Don't do that. You want to be bending the knees. You want to be very carefully doing this. Hello, Mom.
And volunteers get to work.
I don't like to be in that. I'll go in that one. My tools are already down there.
In Trench 8, an amazing coincidence cheers everyone on the first day. Jeff Shirley, who lived at Kirkby Hardwick in the 1950s, uncovers his own name.
We found this wall and I happened to say, oh, looks to be some writing on it. And when we uncovered the writing, it said Shirley. I think it was probably my father that wrote it.
And how did you feel about it when you saw it?
I thought they was pulling my leg for a start, and then I was accused of having put it on. And I've been the butt of quite a few jokes since.
Otherwise, early progress is slow in Trench 8.
So far we've taken off the bit of the rubbish at the top, which was all from the demolition layer, and we've found a layer of garden soil which we're now going through, which is coming down onto a little layer of gravel. So far the things that we found, what you might expect for the demolition, so we've had lots of chunks of stone, brick, glass. I think we've even had a car in here. You know, we found a headlight and some bits of rim from around the windows and things, so it's been quite hard going getting down.
It's an antifreeze actually.
There may be excitement ahead, but for the moment, Trench 7 soon has plenty to show. A chocolate box floor, drainage arrangements and a well. And one of our first questions gets an answer.
Well, what we've got down here, look, is the coach house floor. We've exposed that now. So you've got at least 3 drains, square drains, one down here, and possibly a 4th one that was there. And then that's later been reworked with this chocolate block floor over the top, probably in the 20th century. And then what we've exposed there is the main western wall of the old house coming down. And then it's going across this way. Seems to end, okay, that way. You've got the west wing of the building here, the old building. And then over this side, you've got an extension to the building with a drain in the middle and a big floor. It's outside possibly the front door of this wing, and we found it yesterday. It's a big circular brick-lined well, but we don't know how far down it goes. It's blocked in a few feet down, but you've no guarantee it's stable, so we've got to mask this off. But that's the well. So if I stand here, you can see this is the original wall. It's been demolished and then possibly built on across the top. And you've got this other wall here. That's one that doesn't key in. It just butts onto it like that. So that one's newer than that one.
Once again, we want to share our dig with local people. A group from Willowwood Day Centre arrive. They get a lively account from Andy of what used to be here.
See the big walls over there?
Yeah, on that model. Yeah.
That's the big Tudor building coming across. This is an old wall here.
Yeah, all the big trees are on the outside,
chimney
not inside.
just here. Yeah. All the way up. Big fireplace above my head.
Yeah.
And then there were loads of windows. There's a door here. I used to walk through like.
Lovely morning, isn't it? Wonderful.
Beautiful.
We're going on train today.
On their second visit, the same group take the Robin Hood line to Mansfield to visit the museum. This stretch of line has 200 years of history, which makes it one of the earliest in the country. It started in 1819 as the Pinxton to Mansfield tramway, with horses or oxen taking coal to Mansfield and stone from Mansfield to the canal at Pinxton. A passenger coach was added around 1832, and this is what you could have seen passing slowly through Kirkby Hardwick. But there's more than archaeology to be enjoyed. 2012 may turn out to be the wettest year for a century, but it's a perfect spring day as Orchard Primary School descend on Kirkby Hardwick.
Oh yeah.
We have a floor here, very nice chocolate block floor, Try eating it though, because your teeth would crunch. There's a rather earlier floor here, which is made of these nice stones. So there was a big building going off in that direction, into the trees originally. And this is just the end of it. And then we've got some maps that show in the 18th century, that's 1700s, about 300 years ago. It was a 2-storey building, and we don't know what it was like before that, which is why we're digging.
There's a hole there, and there's a hole there. Whoop, that big square hole. That was where they held the beams that held the next floor up. So the big beams for the floor. So that would have been the next floor up. Now normally, nowadays, we sleep upstairs and we live downstairs. But the servants and all the storage was downstairs, and you lived upstairs because it was far nicer, drier and warmer.
That's pretty grand, isn't it? But that's not there anymore. They've all gone. But these old photos, they show you, look at these fantastic windows that were on that, you know what we're saying, that you'd have your fancy windows and all your fancy living quarters on the first floor. You wouldn't have it on the ground floor. And they'd have had lovely windows and big fireplaces. I'm going to see if I can find the coach house. Got a chimney up the side. That would have been where the smithy was. Can you just see there's a car there? There's like a little frame of a car, a dune buggy. There's 4 wheels and a steering wheel.
Towards the end of their visit, the children clean up some of the finds.
We've gone around looking at where the buildings and old stone was, where the Tudor houses have been, and we've been told about what would have been there probably.
Kirkby Hardwick was knocked down in 1966, and that it was split in 3 families lived there. There was a spiral staircase leading up to the upstairs room.
Trench 8 may have been disappointing in the early stages, but as we dig lower, the discoveries come one after another.
We have an interesting feature over here that's been cleaned out, which is on an east-west orientation to our trench. Very interestingly, it appears to have almost steps cut into it. We're not quite sure what exactly this is yet, but hopefully by the end of the excavation this week we will be able to formulate some sort of hypothesis.
Still more excitingly, our volunteer finds the oldest pottery yet discovered at Kirkby Hardwick, and then finds it again for the camera.
All right. Looks like I've just found a bit of medieval pottery with a nice glaze on. Ben, I've got a bit of medieval pottery here. I don't know what you think. I'd like to have a look at it.
I think this might be the 13th or 14th century, this bit of pot.
All right. Okay, excellent. It's good news.
Done.
Good news, indeed.
Pray continue, sir. Very good. David, could you tell me the date of this, please?
I could tell you more than the date for that. I can tell you it is part of a jug, and I can tell you it is a medieval jug that was made in Nottingham, and I can tell you that it was probably made in Nottingham sometime between the early to mid 13th century to the very early 14th century. So, a nice bit of dating there.
Thank you very much indeed. Brilliant.
And medieval pottery comes to light in Trench 7 as well.
Today I found this bit of pot in the corner of this trench here. I've been told it's late medieval. It's a cistern pot which is used for brewing beer. As you can see, it's still got the glaze on the edge.
So there's no doubt about it. Someone was living here and breaking their pots in the 13th century.
There's a big map book somewhere with a big map in it.
As always, there's plenty of recording to be done.
We're left with
And then that way. Yeah, and then dot the square in.
Andy's showing how shaped stone can be recorded using a profile gauge. Where was this piece originally? A drawing of 1770 proves it was in the East Gate, always known as the Wolsey Gate, because of the Cardinal's overnight stay in 1530. Lots more visitors come to site. Annesley Primary bring a splash of colour. Kirkby College pay us a visit.
There's all this yellow stuff here called rubble. So,
This lady wants to be an archaeologist.
oh, right, okay.
About 50 people turn up for the open day on April the 1st. And a family who come to the open day return for some experience in excavation.
So this is good because you can get dirty.
Yeah!
Oh, we must take a photograph of you with Oscar.
A lovely pot emerges from a rubbish pit in Trench 7.
I think I found a bit of pottery. Could you just have a look?
Okie doke. Let's have a look.
I found a bit of pottery. Would you like to have a look at it?
Oh, very nice. Well, it looks a bit Cistercian wary, but should have a number of handles. It's like a little cup.
Oh, right.
Drinking stuff out of. But it might be blackware. So I'd say it was 17th century, probably that.
Oh, very
Must
good.
come out from down.
Just down here.
Just outside the wall.
Yeah. just
Excellent.
inside.
As the result of local publicity, we are given 2 minutes of cine-film footage of a family clambering around Kirkby Hardwick just before it was demolished in 1966. The tiles have already gone, and we can look down into the courtyard and see the ancient walls. Just a tantalising glimpse of what was here 50 years ago. After a slow start, Trench 8 has already given us 13th century pottery and rock-cut steps. In the final days, it comes up with a major surprise, a row of post holes cut into the bedrock, some of which contain medieval pottery. David, what are we to make of this discovery?
Well, it's exciting and unexpected. It tells us that a timber building stood here in the medieval period. One row of post holes here in the trench gives us one side of the structure, but where was the other side? It might have been towards the east wall, or it could have stretched towards the west, where the later building was put up. We'd have to dig again to find out more about it.
After 2 weeks of warm spring weather, winter returns with a vengeance as we pack up on the 4th of April. At the start, David explained his hopes for the dig. Have they been fulfilled?
I'd say we've achieved more than we expected. We're pretty sure now that this drawing of the 1600s doesn't match the surviving walls, because there is no sign of Tudor occupation up against the north wall, and this west wall doesn't extend any further beyond that point. This trench told us that the west wing here is later in date than the Tudor wall and had been demolished and rebuilt as a coach house in the 1800s. We also found a rubbish pit over here from the 1600s which contained food waste, pottery and high status glass drinking vessels. As for this trench, Once we'd got past the bits of car and the concrete, out came the medieval pottery, taking us right back to the 1200s, just as we'd hoped. The row of post holes and the rock-cut steps were the icing on the cake, but give us new puzzles to solve.
So there you have it. 2 more short weeks of excavation have written a new chapter in the history of Kirkby Hardwick. But I'm certain that won't be the final chapter, as there's still so much left to discover.